It is the Commanders Report Mailbag. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today I love these mailbag segments, guys, because I get to talk with you guys directly, that one-on-one conversation. You guys tell me what you want me to talk about, and I answer your questions. If you want to get a question on a future edition of the Commanders Report Mailbag, you have to watch our live shows, and in order to watch our live shows, you got to be subscribed to the channel. We're getting really close to 20,000 subscribers here on the Commanders Report, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now to join the most interactive Commanders fan community here on the platform. I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So if you will, make sure you click that subscribe button. Join us for our Commanders Report live shows every single Thursday starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then you guys can get your questions here on the show. Let's start with my man, Jonathan Taylor here, one of the OGs, says thoughts on Trace McSorely signing. I think it's another camp body, essentially. Sam Hartman's hurt. He can't participate in games or practices right now, so you need somebody to fill his spot in the rotation. And McSorley's somebody that's been on practice squads. He's been on different teams, and he's just kind of been a journeyman here. And he's just I don't think he's going to make the roster. Let's put it that way. You got Jaden Daniels. You've got Marcus Mariota, you got Jeff Driscoll. I think Driscoll is significantly better than McSorley. So at this point, I think he's just a camp body. Then we got one from my man, Kenny Strasser. What's up, Kenny? Says, who do you think gets more total touchdowns this year, B-Rob or Ekeler? I think Ekeler has looked better than most people thought he would. He's looked better than I thought he would. All right, last year I thought he kind of lost the step a little bit. This year he looks better. I will say that for sure. I don't know if it's exactly all the way back to where it was with the Chargers, but hey, man, if you're getting 80% of what Austin Ekeler was with the Los Angeles Chargers in his prime, you're taking that. In terms of who gets more touchdowns, I think it's going to be Brian Robinson. The reason why I think that is I think he gets more goal line work. All right, he's the bigger back. He's somebody that can bruise a little bit more than Ekeler. Ekeler's going to be more of the receiving back. He's going to be the guy that's in there on second and long, obvious passing situations, that kind of stuff, and also as a secondary back. But when you're close to the end zone, I do believe B-Rob is going to be that guy. So I will say B-Rob for that question. Then we got one from Abdul. What's up, Abdul? Says, do we think the draft picks were more heavily influenced by Dan Quinn or Adam Peters? I say Dan Quinn. So when he says heavily influenced, what does he mean? Does he mean like who made the decisions? If he means who made the decisions, it's the final call is Adam Peters. Now, obviously, Dan Quinn and his coaches have, pretty significant say in terms of what they're looking for, in terms of the players that they want and the style of players that they want to fill certain roles. But Adam Peters is the GM. He's the one that makes the final decisions. If he's talking about influencing people on the practice field, it's obviously Dan Quinn. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this question, Abdul, but I tried to answer it in both ways. I kind of saw the interpretation going. But I think what you mean here is who decided who drafted these players, and it was Adam Peters. Then we got one from Crocker Betty. Says, I saw Antonio Brown say the Commanders have reached out to him. There's no way this question actually exists. Trying to acquire him. Any truth to that? He is a primary source, LOL. I'm going to say this right now, guys. There is no way Antonio Brown gets signed by the Washington Commanders. No way. No way. This is a team that is trying to establish a culture, all right? You don't do that by bringing in Antonio Brown that you have no idea what he's going to do at any moment. All right, he can just leave the team at any moment. Right? He did that with the Raiders and the Buccaneers. It's not good. All right, so Antonio Brown, he's 36 years old now, by the way, too. I just don't think there's any way. I think Antonio was kind of playing a prank on us there on X. I don't think the Commanders have reached out to him. I don't believe this report whatsoever. And I can tell you guys this right now. Antonio Brown will not be a Washington Commander. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you bring in Antonio Brown at 36 years old to pair him up with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin? Give me a yes or a no for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Going from Patriot Clips says, where are we with Fedarian Mathis? So he's currently competing to try to make this roster. John Ridgeway is another guy that he's competing with. I guess we'll just have to see. Obviously, he was a former pretty high draft pick for the Washington Commanders, but as we know, Ron Rivera missed on a lot of these guys in his time making the decisions in the draft room. So I'm looking at this situation. I'm rooting for Mathis. He's a pretty good run defender, but he's not really doing much as a pass rusher. So I'm rooting for Mathis. I guess we'll see where everything shakes out. Got one from Jeffrey Lake, says, what's the expectations for Ben Sinnott? After last week's performance, they're rising. Let's put it that way. He looked awesome in that first preseason game. Yards after the catch, making tough catches, not going down easy, all the stuff that you want to see from a guy like that. And he really showed off his really rare quickness for his size and for the position of tight end. It's why the Commanders went out and got him, because you just don't see tight ends that are as fast and as quick as Ben Sinnott is. So I think that after last week, I'm feeling really good about his prospects. And because Zach Ertz is essentially a corpse at this point in his NFL career, I would expect Sinnott to get into that number one tight end role sooner rather than later. Before we get to the rest of the questions on the mailbag today, I want to tell you guys about today's sponsor at Prize Picks, which is the most exciting and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and then watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000. That is, if you know ball. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season, and make your picks in less than 60 seconds to turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. So this is some week 1 projections right here from our friends at Prize Picks. I'm going to take the less on Tyreek Hill receiving yards, the less on CJ Stroud passing yards. Same thing with Dak Prescott, because F the Cowgirls. You can download the Prize Picks app today to get started and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks on the Prize Picks app today for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. We got one from Jasmine Gray. What's up, Jasmine? Says, is it Washington Commanders will make the playoffs this year? If I had to guess, I would say no. And I hate to say that. But I think that, sometimes these things take a couple years. We saw Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions is a great example. Took 2 years before Campbell was able to turn that organization into the winning franchise that it is today. And I see Dan Quinn as a highly respected person in this league in a very similar mold to Dan Campbell. You have to have talent to win in this league. And right now the Commanders, Jahan Dotson's not looking great in camp. Emmanuel Forbes isn't looking great in camp. You have major holes on the offensive line and at the outside cornerback position. I think the Commanders are going to do a lot of good things this year. They're going to be very entertaining to watch, which is something we have not been able to say about this team for the last several years. I think Daniels will show a lot of really good things. And heading into the year 2 of this regime, that's when I think I'm really going to start to get excited about this squad, because usually going into year 2 is when quarterbacks coming out of the draft really start to play well. That's when head coaches really start to get their footing. And also it sounds like the Commanders are saving up a ton of cap space so that they can be big spenders in next year's offseason. So I'm really excited about the prospects of the future for this football team, but I want to preach patience here because, the team and the roster isn't all the way there yet. I see this year as more of a foundational year. Set the culture in place, get Jaden Daniels' feet wet here in the league, and then let's go forward here into year 2 and beyond, hopefully with the Commanders being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Then we got Eugene here. It says, what is the biggest area of concern for Washington currently? If I'm being honest, man, it's the offensive line. And, if I can put another one in there equally as concerning is the outside cornerback situation. I mean, they really came into the year, I think, with putting a lot of chips in the middle of the table for Emmanuel Forbes to pan out. And right now, the early returns in practices and in these preseason games haven't looked good. Okay? And that's just the truth of it. So I look at the offensive line. Allegretti, I hope he plays well. but he's never been a full-time starter. Same thing with Cornelius Lucas. Brandon Coleman was extremely raw coming out of TCU. He had like a 56.6 PFF grade last year, which is awful, and that's in college football. Now he's going to be going up and being asked to go up against number one edge rushers as a left tackle in the National Football League. Color me skeptical on that. I'm rooting for him, though. It's just a big question mark on the offensive line, then also at the outside cornerback position. And it seems like the team isn't going to alleviate those needs in free agency before the season. So I think those two things are probably going to be the biggest holes. Then we got Bastian. Hope I'm saying that right, my friends. Is there any shot Trace McSorely makes the final roster? Is there a chance? Sure. All right, but I think it's going to have to involve an injury to Marcus Mariota or Jeff Driscoll. And not to mention Hartman is going to have to lose out to him as well. So I think it's a very much an uphill battle for Trace McSorley. He's going into camp extremely late at this point. I think Jeff Driscoll's looked pretty decent as a number 3 option. So I really don't see Trace McSorley as somebody that's going to end up making this final roster. So let me know down there in the comments section which quarterbacks end up making the final roster. To me, it's pretty clear. I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, and Jeff Driscoll. But if you think Sam Hartman or Trace McSorley makes it, let me know your thoughts and your reasoning down there in the comments section. We got one from Ty Young. What's up, Ty? Says, what y'all think of Martavis Bryant? Think he will make the team? So like Trace McSorley, I really think that Martavis Bryant has a very much an uphill battle. I think that the depth in this wide receiver room is actually pretty decent. You got guys like De'Ami Brown, Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, Olamide Zaccheaus. I like Mitchell Tinsley as well. I like Bryson Tremaine. I like the depth of this wide receiver room. And Martavis hasn't played since 2018. So listen, they brought him in for a reason. Obviously, they like him enough to give him another shot here in the National Football League at his age. But he's going to have to really impress, and he's going to have to really get things going to make the team. So make sure you guys like the video if you haven't already. If you are pumped for Saturday, just like we are, man, it's going to be a lot of fun this season here on the Commander's Report. And if you're excited to hang out with us on Saturday, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon right now. We got Jay's brother here, says, on a scale of 0 to 10, how worried are you about Jahan Dotson? Good question. Right now, I have to say I'm at about a 7.5 or an 8, and that's a high number. But, I mean, the fact that he's a first-round selection going into his 3rd year, and the head coach of the team that he's on is saying that guys like Olamide Zaccheaus, De'Ami Brown, rookie Luke McCaffrey are in the same conversation as he is for wide receiver 2, that's concerning. He's been having a slow start to camp. He didn't have a great first preseason game. By the time this comes out, the game on Saturday will already be over, but I guess we'll see how he does then. But right now, it's definitely concerning, especially for the type of talent that he is and how slow his start has been. So let me know down there in the comments section, is it time to panic on Jahan Dotson? How worried are you about Jahan Dotson? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Put it on a scale of 0 to 10 for me. I'm at a 7.5 or an 8. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. That's going to be the end of today's mailbag. Really good questions this week, guys. If you want to get your question on next week's mailbag, again, we go live every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. And until next time, hail to the Commanders.